Hello, this is Sir Jet, and I'm glad to have you with me for another episode of the History Lectures. Today we will have part 2 of the Mabini's La Revolucion Filipina lesson, the document that Mabini wrote in Guam, and it's about his insights on the Philippine Revolution. So this is Mabini, if you remember his picture from the Philippine money. You usually see him, I think, in the 10 peso bill, and I think he's now in the 5 peso coin together with Andres Bonifacio. He's a katipunero from the beginning of the revolution, and later on he became the advisor of Emilio Aguinaldo in his cabinet in the First Philippine Republic. He's nicknamed the Sublime Paralytic or ang Dakilang Lumpo because he has polio and he's paralyzed from waist down or from his legs, and he cannot walk, he cannot run. He got captured by the Americans during the Phil-Am War, and they sent him to Guam because he wouldn't pledge allegiance to the American flag. That's where he wrote the La Revolucion Filipina that we studied. So today we will analyze. In my class, you don't really memorize, but you analyze things. Isn't that more exciting? Okay, so I won't really ask you to memorize dates, but I want you to see the contents and their relevance to our time. So today we will have the analysis of La Revolucion Filipina, and what can we see on screen. That is a close-up of Mabini, and the whole document can be summed up with this statement. Everybody read this with me together. The revolution fell because it was badly led. Those were the exact words of Mabini that he wrote in La Revolucion Filipina. And we find also those exact words in the movie General Goyo. Have you watched that movie? Towards the end of that movie, there was a monologue or a voiceover, and it says there these exact words: the revolution fell because it was badly led. And who was the leader of the revolution? Emilio Aguinaldo. So I have 10 points or 10 statements here that we will run through to establish, or for you to see, that the revolution was indeed badly led according to Mabini. So who's this guy? That is General Antonio Luna. That is a photograph. That's how the real Luna looked like. Does he look like the actor John Arthia? Okay, so number 1, according to Mabini, Aguinaldo was responsible for the assassination of Luna. Directly or indirectly, whatever you may look at it, if you're anti-Aguinaldo, you wouldn't agree, but for Mabini, I mean, if you're pro-Aguinaldo, because there's still some people who are pro-Aguinaldo in these days, and so they don't agree exactly on what Mabini has to say about Luna. But for Mabini, he's the one we're studying right now. He in his opinion, Aguinaldo was responsible, directly or indirectly, for the assassination of Luna. many years after the assassination of Luna, Aguinaldo wrote his own version of the narration of the Revolution, Mga Gunita ng Revolution. That is the title of Aguinaldo's book. And he wrote there that yes, he admitted the ordering of the killing of Bonifacio. But for Luna, Aguinaldo was very firm. He did not order the killing of Luna. Now, Mabini said that Aguinaldo has a hand on it. Who's telling the truth? We don't know. Okay, but we have to really search some more documents probably to establish who really was responsible. But for Mabini, being a very close confidant of Aguinaldo, what made him say this? Okay? Remember that Mabini belongs to the inner circle of Aguinaldo. He knows how Aguinaldo thinks. He knows his ways. They were very close to one another. And for Mabini to say that Aguinaldo has a hand in the assassination, maybe that would have a lot of weight also. Now, with the death of Luna, Mabini said, what a loss. We could have won the revolution had Luna been around. And even the Americans, the enemy, would agree to Mabini. American general said they killed their one and only general, because Antonio Luna was actually the one and only general in Aguinaldo's army who had formal military training, who studied in a military school. All the others didn't have that experience, including Aguinaldo, to be in the military academy and study books about how to conduct a war or strategies in the battlefield. Luna had that experience, and not elsewhere, but in a very nice place in Europe, which was the center of learning at that time. And so Luna was really a high caliber general. He's not a pushover, and to have him in our army was really a big advantage. And to have him killed by the fellow Filipinos, wow, that is really a big loss for our cause. And the Americans easily agreed to that. That indeed the loss of Luna was big. Luna had a lot of bright ideas on how to win the war. He said that he wants to bring the army, the whole Philippine army, to the Cordillera Mountains to have their hideout there, and so the Americans would come and chase them or wage war in the mountains, not on the plains, not on the lowlands. If you see the movie, General Luna was fighting in the lowlands, face to face with the shooters of the Americans. That kind of strategy is kind of old school. And for Luna, he feels that they would lose that way, but Aguinaldo wouldn't listen to him. Luna's idea was to bring the war in the mountains, where they had the home court advantage. The Americans don't know the terrain. The Filipinos do. If you bring them to your home court, they would be an easy prey. Luna's strategy to have a mountain fortress in the northern Philippines would make the Americans lose a lot of money and time trying to eliminate the Filipinos hiding in the mountains. And he's also good in math, General Luna, you know. And he calculated that as long as the war is going on in the Philippines and America couldn't finish off the Filipinos, they would have a big loss, okay? Spending too much on the war in the Philippines. And the effect would be the American civilians would now tell their government, would have rallies, would have some kind of movement to tell their government to stop the war in the Philippines because it's draining their economy. And so the Americans would leave the country. That is the master plan of General Luna. But nobody listened to him. Aguinaldo didn't listen to Luna. And so we lost the war. Had Luna been around and Aguinaldo listened to him and implemented his genius plans, maybe there's a big chance that we would have won the Phil-Am War. But, that's how the cookie crumbles. Luna got assassinated and we lost him. Now, according to Mabini, this happened because of Aguinaldo's great appetite for power. He really wanted to be president and nobody would be a threat, or nobody should be a threat. And so Luna seems to be a threat, so he had him eliminated. And what's more, there were people who were feeding negative reports about Luna. Some people called Chuchu, and they would whisper to Aguinaldo's ear that, oh, that guy Luna, he wanted really to be the next leader, so you watch out for him. One day you might end up in a coup d'etat and lose your presidency, so better terminate that guy. There were people in the cabinet who were telling Aguinaldo those buzz about Luna. But what did Mabini say? Luna really didn't have that big ambition to wrestle the position of president away from Aguinaldo. He doesn't want to be president. Maybe second in command, yes, prime minister, but not the top gun, the top person in the republic. But sadly, the president listened to those choo-choo people, and so we lost Luna. What a loss. That is, according to Mabini, the revolution really was badly led. That's how Aguinaldo looked like. That's a photograph, probably the time when he was president. Aguinaldo became president when he was 29 years old, very young. Now, furthermore, in Mabini's analysis, with Luna's death also comes Aguinaldo's moral death, which is 1,000 times more painful than physical death. Aguinaldo lived a long life. He almost reached 100 years, just a few years short. He died in his mid-90s. He had a very long life. He was president when he was 29, and the assassination of Luna happened probably when Aguinaldo was 30 or 31 years old, and he lived many, many more decades after that event, physically. But for Mabini, he said Aguinaldo died also when Luna died. Aguinaldo died not physically, but he died a moral death. He died morally. It's like saying his morality got finished off. And that's a tragic thing if you would lose your morality. If people around you wouldn't believe in you anymore because they see you as somebody who is a monster, or who see you as somebody who isn't that good, who see you that you're not a good person. And that's a very tragic thing to happen, to die a moral death. It is more painful than physical death. If you die physically, you experience pain for just a few seconds or moments, and after the pain, no more pain. You're dead. But to suffer a moral death, When people don't believe in you anymore, after many, many years, the pain is still there. And so moral death is a dangerous kind of death. It's 1,000 times more painful than physical death. And that is the death that Aguinaldo suffered in 1899, the year Luna died. Wow, such strong words coming from Mabini. Mabini even advised Aguinaldo that in order to get rid of this moral death that he suffered in 1899, he should die in the battlefield. He should die fighting the Americans. He should be in the battlefield, shooting it out, slugging it out with the Americans. And if he would die in that manner, the Filipino people will remember him as a hero. That was Mabini's advice. Just like what happened to General Goyo. He died fighting the Americans. And so we consider him a hero. In the elementary schools, he's being taught as the hero of Tirad Pass. And that sort of washed out the image of General Goyo as the hatchet man of Aguinaldo. If you watch the movie, General Goyo's the guy who would eliminate all the enemies of Aguinaldo. After the death of Luna, General Goyo looked for the officers loyal to Luna. That he even tortured those officers. The Bernal brothers, they were loyal to Luna, and they were tortured and killed by Goyo himself and his men. So Goyo had really a bad image had not the Tirad Pass incident that made him an instant hero. He died in the battlefield, erasing all the bad things he did. And that's what we remember. He died a martyr. And Mabini is telling Aguinaldo he should do the same. Die in the battlefield and the Filipino people will remember you as a hero. But he wouldn't die in the battlefield. He didn't choose to fight the Americans till death. He got captured by the Americans. And then he pledged allegiance to the American flag. Mabini did not pledge allegiance, but Aguinaldo pledged allegiance to the American flag. And so he was not thrown to Guam. But he lived a normal and decent life in Kawit, Cavite after the Phil-Am War. And he lived many, many years, but he was morally dead, according to Mabini. With the death of Aguinaldo, his moral death, rather, comes the death also of the Revolution. You know, Luna died in 1899, but the Phil-Am War officially ended in 1902. What happened in between those years? Actually, there wasn't really too much gunfire or battles because the Republic was on the run. The reality was that after the death of Luna, so many soldiers in the Philippine Army got demoralized. And they quit. They became deserters. They shed off their uniforms, dropped their guns, and returned to their families. They quit the war. They didn't believe anymore for what they are fighting for, because they saw that their officers were killing one another. They saw that Luna got killed, and there was a big buzz that time that it was Aguinaldo who was behind it. So the soldiers in that time knew, or that's what they learned, or that's what they talk about, Luna getting killed by fellow Filipinos. What made them think that Aguinaldo has a hand on it? Who were the killers of Luna? The Kawit Company. This is a battalion of soldiers from Kawit, the hometown of Aguinaldo. In other words, they are the bodyguards of the president. They are like the PSG. They are the close-in security of the president. And these soldiers wouldn't act or wouldn't do any action unless they were commanded by the president himself. They wouldn't take orders from anyone except from the president. So in those times, people were really thinking Aguinaldo had a hand in the killing of Luna. And so that made many people demoralized. Maybe a generous estimate of the size of the Philippine army at the start of the Phil-Am War maybe would be around, let's say, 80,000. That would be a generous estimate, and a conservative estimate would be 30,000. And they fought, the Americans, for the first months in the Phil-Am War. And then Luna died, and more than half of the army left the command, left their jobs as soldiers. When Aguinaldo was running away to the mountains in the north, he was together with Goyo. There were around just 2,000 of the soldiers running with him. So can you imagine that from 30,000 they were down to 2,000? What happened to the 28,000? Maybe some got captured, some died in the battle, but a lot of them became deserters. And when Aguinaldo was captured in Isabela around 2 years after the Battle of Tirad Pass, he was just with 17 soldiers. So what happened to the rest? Probably they died, but a large number quit the revolution. And so that's the death blow of the revolution, the death of Luna. Many got demoralized and quit their jobs as soldiers. Now, furthermore, according to Mabini, Aguinaldo judged the worth of men not by their ability, character, and patriotism. How would you judge the worth of a man? How would you say that this man is worthy, or this man has high value and the other man has little value? How would you judge that? How would you say that this man is better than the other? For Aguinaldo, his criteria is not ability, character, or patriotism. But for Aguinaldo, it is how close you are to him. If you are his compadre, if you are his cousin, if you are a townmate, if you are Caviteño like him, then you are valuable. And then you are high value in my army or in my government. But if you are not like that, you are not my kumpare, you are not my kababayan, you are not my cousin, you are not my province mate, you are nothing, or you have low value than people who are my friends. Even if you are highly able, you have high ability in the battlefield, if you have great character, even if you are not corrupt, even if you are so brave and you love your country so much, but if you are not my friend or province mate, you have little value. That is Aguinaldo. Now, who is Mabini referring to in number 6? Mabini is talking about Luna. Luna has great ability. Studying from a military school and studying in Europe, he knows his stuff. He's a genius. He has great ability. Character, that's Luna also. You cannot really fool him. He knows what he's doing. He knows that he loves his country so much. That's patriotism. And he has a mission, and he is determined to fulfill his mission. Such great character. That is Luna. But for Aguinaldo, the worth of Luna is not appreciated. But rather, Aguinaldo appreciated more the Kawit Company. Pedro Hanolino and friends. They were his townmates, his province mates. Maybe some of them are his kumpare or even distant relatives. And he prioritized them over Luna. There was no investigation whatsoever that happened after the assassination of Luna. The Kawit Company was never summoned by the president and asked for an explanation. What happened in Cabanatuan that day? How did Luna die? Why did you do that? You ganged up on him. There was no investigation that happened. They were left scot-free of that crime of murder or homicide, if you want to be technical about it. But there was no investigation. Mabini was frustrated. That's why he wrote number 6 and number 7. He should have seen the value of Luna and made him an asset in the revolution. But he was just like a pawn that was fed off in a chess game. Number 8. Aguinaldo practiced favoritism. So I have explained that already. He neglected the transgressions of his favorites, the Kawit Company. And you know, because of all this, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, number 9, the people neglected him. The people, you don't need to ask them because actions speak better than words. During the American colonial period and beyond, Aguinaldo was like a nobody. He's not the people's favorite. Maybe for the province mates, yes, but for the rest of the country, many Filipinos didn't like Aguinaldo. And the evidence is this. Aguinaldo ran for president in 1935 versus Manuel Quezon, and he lost badly. There's the picture of the 1935 campaign wherein Aguinaldo was already an old man and Quezon was his opponent in the presidential election. It was a very colorful election. The people wouldn't believe in Aguinaldo. There was a landslide victory for president. Quezon won as the Commonwealth president. Here's the poster of Aguinaldo during that time. You watch out for the movie by Gerald Tarog that he's going to make, the trilogy, Luna, Goyo, and then the third part and last of the series would be the 1935 election featuring Manuel Quezon. And the people believed more in Quezon. That was a very colorful campaign, the 1935 election, Aguinaldo versus Quezon. There was a lot of political mudslinging. Aguinaldo would tell the public in the campaign, oh, that man Quezon, don't vote him. He is handsome, yes, but he's babaero. He had so many women because of his good looks. And he even impregnated his katulong. Those are the political mudslingings that happened. Now, Quezon, for his part, would also do the same. He would say, oh, don't vote for Aguinaldo because he's the one who ordered the killing of Andres Bonifacio and Antonio Luna. And those were enough, right, for the people to realize who to vote for and who not to vote for. So Aguinaldo lost badly in that election. And so number 10, what can we learn from La Revolucion Filipina? We have seen that Mabini closed his memoir by giving a challenge for the people in the future, that's us, to not forget this painful historical lesson, to avoid putting in power a leader whose character is like Aguinaldo's. A leader who would put value on people who are close to him, loyal to him, rather than people who are good, who are capable, who love their country. Those are the people that we should put beside us, around us, and value them greatly. And people who have so big appetite for power, watch out for those people, says Mabini. They should not be leaders if they are hungry for power. It's like Luna's words, you know, mamili ka, bayan o sarili. And who do you think Aguinaldo chose? Bayan or sarili? Now, Mabini has his thoughts, his opinions to answer that question. And we have just studied that in this memoir of his, La Revolucion Filipina. It's a sad document, but very powerful. It's very radical also, especially if you are pro-Aguinaldo and you grew up learning that Aguinaldo was a hero, and suddenly here in college you're learning another thing. You're learning that Aguinaldo looks like a historical villain. Well, it's up to you to decide. What we're doing here is we're looking at the primary documents. And from the primary documents, like La Revolucion Filipina, that's where we judge, or we derive our judgment, or we derive our conclusions, okay, about Philippine history. Okay, so this is where we will end the Mabini lesson. What happens next in Philippine history? We enter a new chapter, the American colonial period. We lost the war versus the Americans. And now it's time to move on as the losers of the war. We will be adjusting to the system, the life that the new colonizers would be imposing on us. That would be a very interesting lesson. So don't be absent in our next meeting. Alright? So this is Sir Jet saying goodbye and thank you.